Music or not music? Hey everyone, it's Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore, and welcome to the Music Masterclass. So, yeah, as always, things are an adventure, and I never figured out what was wrong with the audio last time, but I tried various tests, and it was fine then. Hopefully it's fine now. So, anyhow, we're going to be talking about music. We're going to talk about rhythm specifically. Let me turn down the music now that y'all got to hear it. So we're going to be talking about rhythm specifically. And the first thing I want to do, and I'm going to do this anytime I remember for the next, as long as we're running this basic theory course, is if you all have any really specific questions about any of the material in the lessons, or the worksheets, and why is the answer to number 17 blah 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 instead of blah blah blah, or whatever, I'm definitely wanting to be able to answer questions for people and help with anything that's not clear. So I'm going to spend whatever time I need doing that here, but also expanding the ideas that are in the projects, and in particular, this week's project of the rhythmic transcription. So I'm going to pop over for a second to where I have that up. Actually, give me one moment to get that, because again, testing various different things today. I'm going to look and see, because I saw that someone had posted a something in there about the transcription, and so I do want to check that out. At least I thought I had. Now maybe I'm not seeing it. Okay, I thought I had seen that someone had posted something about the transcription specifically. So what we're going to do is we're going to try some exercises, because that's what I feel is a useful thing to do. Oh, is my view not? Oh, you're right. My view is, haha, thank you. Scroll. There we go. Much better, right? Thank you for that. Okay, so I have to scroll appropriately when doing this. So what I'm going to do is we're going to try some rhythmic exercises here. And here's what I want you to do. So first of all, hopefully you had a chance to check out if you're in the basic music theory course and you checked out in the cohort that thing that I was just pointing to, this rhythmic transcription here. So this is a lesson that I posted several months ago, originally as part of the musicianship skills workshop I was doing for gold level members only. And so only a small set of people got to go through that. Now I'm putting it out to a wider audience, everyone in basic theory. And the idea is this transcription of Let It Be. And then in the newsletter, I did the same thing for the Tony Bennett recording of the song that I've already forgotten what it is, Fascinating Rhythm, right? I want to do some of those on a small scale live. That's what I want to do here. So let me actually pin this thing so I can keep seeing the chat while we flip around and do other things here. So I'm going to give you a couple of rhythms, and your task is going to be just to do it. Your task is going to be to put down I would prefer if you use the process I described. And if you didn't watch that video, use whatever process you can, but I definitely recommend that video. So I'm going to kind of clap out a rhythm, and I want you to do your best to write it out. Okay, we're just going to do a few little exercises like that, talk about the process and so forth. So I had some example rhythms that I was going to draw from a variety of sources here. And here is one of them, all right? This measure, this is going to be in 4/4 time, I'll tell you that. And it's going to be all quarter notes and half notes. There's not going to be any eighth notes or 16ths, all right? It's just quarter notes and half notes. So this is like a little warm-up thing to talk about, okay? So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I clapped that thing out. But as soon as I did that, I realized, yeah, when I clap out rhythms, you don't get to hear how long notes are, right? You don't get to tell if I'm holding a note long or if there's a rest. So I'm going to give you that same thing again. And this time I'm going to sing syllables. All right. I'm going to sing some syllables. Oh, nice, Victor. You posted some comments and I will be checking those out shortly. Are these ones you just posted recently? Because yeah, I haven't checked comments this morning yet. So this time I'm going to sing those syllables with the syllable lu. It's a syllable that we use in one of the courses that one of the universities where I teach or have taught. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lu, 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 lu. So if you're trying to get those down, one of the first points of confusion is just keeping track of all those notes, what they all are. So that's why I don't even there's no pitches, right? So I'm just going to recommend you just put little slash marks down and space them out approximately how far they are and use that to kind of keep track of where they are. I'm going to do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lu, 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 lu. Did I do it the same way that time? There's a little part of me that has a little doubt that I messed something up. But I'm going to do it one more time just to be sure. And then we're going to have to talk about it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lu, 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 lu. Okay. These sorts of rhythmic transcription exercises are all over any sort of music theory course, basic, beginning theory course you take or oral skills course you take in college. You do thousands of exercises very much like that, where you really have nothing to go on but the instructor saying something and you trying to write it down. And we don't have a process usually in place like I've given you. But, all right, I've given you a few shots at that. So, show of hands here. How are people doing with that? How many people feel like you got it perfectly the first try? Or maybe the second try after I started giving syllables? How many people struggled and then eventually felt like you got it? How many people feel like you're still not there yet? So I want some comments here. And I also want to make sure that I'm checked in here and that my stream hasn't ended prematurely or anything silly like that. Still looks like I'm streaming, so we're good. But the proof's in the pudding. So I'm letting you catch up to me. And I'm not seeing, let's see. Looks like Colleen's got a comment in the first half good, second half not so. Tied notes, yes, perfect. I like hearing about the process. I like hearing the process here. So give me one more second here. Okay, so yes, the idea that you might know the rhythms and then struggle to notate them, I expect that. So let me show you a little bit what my process would look like. Here's my spiral notebook that I like to notate things in. And you may or may not be able to tell from looking at this that this is my, this is Fascinating Rhythm. I thought it was actually my Shakespeare thing, but no, this is Fascinating Rhythm. I'm going to kind of show my process a little bit. And Larry's written out, nice. You've kind of written out some, quarters and halves, which is a good way of probably notating this. There is, by the way, a pretty good language called ABC that lets you notate rhythms just using text. And I describe it briefly in the very first lesson of the basic theory course. I don't think it's worth us all learning it just so we can type rhythms into chat. But I'm going to show you what I would do. I would be doing this and going loo, 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 loo. So I'm going to have my lines kind of spaced out in a way that you can maybe tell where the long notes are and where the shorter notes are. And then my next thing is to start counting. If you can internalize that rhythm and sing it along with me, great. But if not, then you're just going to count along with me. And now I'm going to do this by counting on my fingers. My thumb's going to be 1. Loo, 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 loo. Okay? So you want to know where those beat 1s were. So if you're doing this correctly, you had four quarter notes and then a bar line. It was loo, 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 right? That 5th loo was on beat 1. Then it was loo, 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 loo. And I went there to tell you where 1 was and that there wasn't a note, right? That measure went loo, loo, loo. So it was a 1, dum, bum, then the bar line. So that's how I want to draw it. I want to draw that there's a note, a quarter note, and then a longer note, and then a quarter note, or a shorter note, and then the bar line. And then the next measure had that kind of tied over note, as Colleen described it. It had that tied over note, loo, loo, and then it also tied over into the next bar. So I'm going to just draw. And when I say tied over, it doesn't mean I've worked out exactly the thing. I just know, yeah, there's a note that starts at the end of one measure and continues into the next measure. Even if you don't know if it's a quarter note or an eighth or a half, know that. Know there's a note at the end of one measure that extends into the next measure, and therefore there's a tie. So this is kind of how I would have that set up. And I know you probably can't see that really well, but it looks something like this. Let me actually try to type into the chat a reasonable version of what I have. I have something like this. I'm going to put in stars for my notes. Star, 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 and then a bar line, and then star, star with some spaces, and then star, and then a bar line, and then some spaces because it was tied over, and then some spaces because of the long note, and then another note, and then a bar line, and some spaces, and then boom, boom, boom. 3 notes in a row at the end. So this is more or less what I have. Loo, 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 loo. Then the next measure, loo, 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 tied over, loo, loo, tied over, loo, loo, loo. So that's what I have. So what I want to do is talk about, I mean, to some extent, if you're experienced writing rhythms, there's like this magic that happens in the brain where once you know what beat every note is on, you just know how to notate it. And it's hard to explain, just like it's hard to explain how we walk or how we ride a bicycle or anything like that. Things that we do really often, sometimes it's really hard to explain the process because it's so intuitive at this point. Like when I walk, I don't know if my heel hits the ground first or my toe hits the ground first, if my knee is bent, and I don't know those things. I just walk. But if I look at myself walk, I can analyze what's going on, right? And then say, oh, look, so I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this. So that's what I'm going to do. When I'm figuring this stuff out, it's really much more automatic. But if I really stop and look at myself and what I'm doing, I can be more specific. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take that version that I just wrote here and do something a little different. I'm going to sing it again. And this time, when I do that tied over the bar line thing, I'm going to really accentuate it, okay? I'm going to make like a special sound. I kind of did already, but I'm going to do that more explicitly now. So it was loo, 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 loo. All right? Those loud loos that I did, oohs that weren't new notes. They were just carried over. Here's how I'm going to notate that. I'm going to put my 4 notes in the first bar, and in the second bar, I'm going to put a note, and then a note that has some space after it, and then another note. At the beginning of the measure where I went, where I made that sound, I'm going to put a different symbol there. I'll just put a period there, or why not? And then my star with some space after it, and then my space and my bar line, and then again the period to indicate where I went, right? And then my last 3 notes. So this idea here, so what Stephen wrote in, so you wrote in O's. Oh, I like your thing too. O's, the only problem is that your eyes there look like my vertical bars, or maybe they are vertical bars. And so the bar, I want my bar line symbol to look different than my note symbol. On paper, I can make them different lengths, but I can't type them that way. So that's why I'm using asterisk, because they kind of remind me of note heads. So the point is that I'm notating something on those downbeats to indicate that that's the thing that got tied over. So if I now want to notate this for real, I'm going to come over to MuseScore and actually do that, okay? I'll use a grand staff in case I ever want to do a polyrhythm of any kind here. So, you know, I said it was in 4/4, so I had quarter, 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 half, and then quarter tied to quarter, and then half, then quarter tied to, whoa, what did I do? Boom. I didn't mean to tie that. I just meant to go another C, and then tied over, and then boom, boom, boom. And by the way, I do know that I don't have to enter those ties manually, that I can just type a half note at the end of a measure and it will automatically tie over the bar line for me. I do know that. I typically do the ties manually because I got to do them manually mid-measure, and I just always do ties the same way. By the way, okay, for anyone who was watching Cafe yesterday, let me do that demonstration. And this is crazy, but check this out. I'm going to start the playback right here. Right, the first note kind of got cut off. I can do the same thing here by selecting the second note, and it got cut off a little bit. I can do the same thing selecting this note. That quarter note got cut off, right? If you select a note, it gets cut off. I go back to the first note, it's still cut off. But now check this out. I'm going to select the time signature. Plays back perfectly, yeah? So for some reason that I don't really know, selecting the time signature as your place to start at the beginning, or the clef as your place to start, is better. And if you want to start in the second measure, select the bar line. Yeah. So MuseScore 4 has been out like for several months now, and when you go back to the alpha and beta, it's been like, you know, better part of half a year, and it took me this long to figure it out. And Bob has mentioned the other thing that I did know: if you select the whole measure and then press escape, that also works. So if you want to start playback at the beginning of a measure, select a measure and then press escape. The reason you press escape is if you have multiple instruments, when you select only one instrument, it's only going to play that instrument. So anyhow, there's a little MuseScore stuff for you, but it's a follow-up from yesterday when I didn't have the sound working, so I couldn't quite get happening what I wanted to have happening. So anyhow, there's my rhythm for you. It's 4 quarter notes, quarter, half, quarter, and then half, quarter, half, or I mean half, no, sorry, 4 quarter notes, then quarter, half, quarter, and then again, quarter, half, quarter, and then 4 quarter notes with a tie across. And the reason I worded it this way is to emphasize again, there are 8 rhythms. There are the same 8 rhythms we're going to encounter over and over and over. And so if you're wondering, you know, I've got these asterisks and spaces and things, and it's maybe a little not obvious how to notate the thing. Oh, did I not actually type in? I think I didn't enter. I typed in my thing before, but I never actually hit enter. Here's the version with the periods. So those are the one, this is the version now that's showing that tied over period at the end. So that's that idea of the thing that I did, boo ba da da da, right? Where I sang that wrong, but ba dum ba 1 2 da da da, where I'm like doing a physical manifestation of the downbeat to help me understand, was there a note being played on that downbeat, or was it being sustained, or was there actually a rest? Because that's the three things that can happen on the downbeat, right? Either there's an actual note there, or there's a rest there, or there's a note sustained from the previous measure. Those are the only three possibilities for something on the downbeat, right? It's either a note, a rest, or something sustained. And you want your attempt at notating this thing to somehow clarify that. So that's what I have tried to clarify here. And now that we look at this, if you look at what I actually wrote just with the stars and the periods down here at the bottom of the chat, what you can see is you can map directly from what I just wrote out to the 8 rhythms. 4 asterisks in a measure, well, there's only one of the 8 rhythms that looks like that. It's 4 quarter notes. Again, we're not talking about eighth notes. We're talking about 16ths. If you've got this, an asterisk, and then an asterisk with some space after it, and then an asterisk, so basically short, long, short. If that's what you're looking at, there's only one rhythm that does that. It's quarter, half, quarter. The next pattern, we have something on one, and then a long, and then a short. Again, that's quarter, half, quarter. It's the only one of the 8 rhythms that looks like that. Once you realize that there's only 8 ways to write something out there, or only 8 possible buckets that these rhythms can fit in, then it's just this matter of looking at how you wrote your dots, so whether you wrote 1s and 0s, or wrote asterisks and dots, or tall slashes and short slashes, or slashes with a lot of space after them, or slashes with a little space, how you write it out, your business. But if you do it in a way that you can then visually map that onto the 8 rhythms, you're gold. That's the way to do it. And I just said you're gold, and I realized Michael Gold is here. So you're literally gold. So anyhow, that's a little more insight into this process here. So I'm going to do another version of this. And I think for this version, I'm going to, again, stick to quarter notes, all right? Again, we'll stick to, and again, if anyone has any questions about stuff, actually, let me see. Victor, you say that you have a specific question, or was it just more like an error in the worksheet, or was it a question? So the worksheets have been out long enough that I'm sort of guessing that the actual bugs have been mostly debugged. I've gotten a lot of comments in the couple years that this course has been out, and so I kind of feel like if there's any actual wrong answers in the worksheet, the answers link is the same as the worksheet link. Oh, that's bad. That's bad. All right, I'll fix that. And then your other question, is it another case of the same thing? And go to the question, go to the comments here. And the handout is missing the right part of the rest example. Okay, so I will check into this. Now here, what I will say is I deliberately cut off the handout, and I might have cut it off at the wrong place. I'm not sure. I'll check into that. But the original version of this had one long handout that had all the notation rules for all meters. And then I eventually split it up into 3 separate handouts. But it's possible I split it up incorrectly. Right? Possible. Okay. So Scott has a question about transcribing rhythm, and Colleen's answer is that yes, you want to get the rhythm first. I'm going to say, it really doesn't matter ultimately. And I mean, in this example, rhythm was all we had, right? All we had was rhythm. In general, you can do it in whatever order you feel is useful. If I'm transcribing something that's complex, I will usually do whatever's easier first, frankly. If I feel like, oh, that rhythm's real simple, now I want to get the pitches, I'm going to do that. But if the pitches are pretty simple, but it's the rhythm that's complicated, I'm going to do it in that order. Sometimes it's a little bit of both, or neither, I should say, in that maybe I don't know the pitches, but I can at least draw dots. Like I put those asterisks there. Here I put slashes, but maybe I'm using dots vertically, like boo, bum, 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 bum. I just wrote out some dots here. Bum, 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 boom, bum, 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 boom. Bum, bum, bum. And again, I don't know if you can really see that, but the idea is I'm using the vertical height of those dots to, even though I don't know the specific pitches, it at least helps me keep track. Because if all I got are dots with no sense of the pitch, it's going to be hard to keep track of where I am when doing the rhythmic transcription. So assuming there is a melodic contour, I like to maybe put my dots, even if they're not literally on the right staff lines, at least show up and down, big leap versus step. It helps me keep my place. All right, so I'm going to do another example here. And this time, it's also going to be quarter notes only. And it'll be shorter. So hopefully you can just apply it and call it good, but we'll see. And I'm just looking for a good example. Okay, here we go. All right. It's going to be a short example. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ba da 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 da. I said 2 measures, but it was 3. Here we go again. 2, 3, 4. Do da da do da da da. I didn't get the same pitches because I wasn't thinking about the pitches. Sorry. Doesn't matter though. We're getting the rhythm here. And here it is again. Do da da do da da da. I'm going to do it one more time. 2, 3, 4. Boo da da do da da da. Okay. So, how'd that go? I'm going to pause a little bit to see what comments we have. It still had another tied across the bar line note in it. Did y'all catch that? And the same technique applies. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do da da do da da da. So you're saying easier, and are you saying that that example was easier than the previous one, or are you agreeing with the statement that pitches are easier? So I'm going to sing that rhythm one more time, and this time I'm going to do the to make it real clear where that tied was. Boo da 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 da. So yeah, Victor's version has 2 short notes and then a long note, and you've got just enough space that I can tell it's long. And then yeah, the pitch changes help because then we know it's easier to tell what's going on, right? And so pitch or lyrics are usually the thing that help us keep track of what note we're even dealing with. So a lot of times when people ask you to do these rhythmic transcription exercises, one of the pet peeves that I have with a lot of things about how theory is taught is that you're taught skills in isolation that don't relate to any musical context, and that makes it harder because the musical context usually helps a lot, right? So hearing the pitches helps you kind of keep track of where you are in the thing, and lyrics again that much more so. So the answers that I have here look good. So what we have is 2 short notes and a long note, which we know is 2 quarters and a half, right? It's the only pattern that has that pattern. And then Victor's got that space at the beginning there. Michael's also showing it as a space at the beginning of the second measure. That's the tied over thing. Do, da, da, da. That sound I made is the sound of that note being tied over. It's not a new note. It's not a rest. It's the note of it being tied over. And by the way, okay, so this is like a random thing, but I'm going to do it anyhow. I don't think Michael Olson, if you're here, apologies, but I'm going to play the bass. I'm going to play guitar bass. I'm going to pretend to be a bassist, and I'm going to do what bassists in salsa bands do. Doom, doom, bum, boom, bum, boom, bum, boom, bum, boom, bum, boom, bum, boom, bum. There's a very specific rhythm called tumbao that bassists in salsa bands play over and over again, and it consists of a note on the and of 2 and a note on 4 tied across the bar line. And they don't tend to play on 1 a whole lot. And yet the rest of the band really kind of wants to know where 1 is because the bassist isn't playing it. And the bassist kind of doesn't want to get lost doing this. So there's a thing that bassists often do. Boom, boom, bum, 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 boom, bum. And I'm playing electric bass, but now here's the same thing on acoustic. Boom, boom, bum, boom, bum, boom, bum, boom, bum. This idea of using your body to help tell you where beat 1 is. When you're doing complicated rhythms that involve tying across a bar line, yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about just only beginning bassists do that. I mean, this is something that I very commonly see in professional groups that I work with. I see the bassist doing that sort of thing because it helps you feel the groove together. And so this thing that I'm doing here of really emphasizing that we want to know that something has happened on the downbeat that specifically is a note tied across. It's not just a beginner pedagogical exercise. It's really kind of, I think, fundamental in getting from the point of being so-so at doing this to being really good at it and being able to just do it on the fly. So, out of breath now. Give me one more second because I meant to get something. Okay. So I have the real book here. So those first examples that we went through actually came from Bach. Now we're going to do some that come from, this one comes from Wayne Shorter, who I talked about at some length before. Now what I'm going to tell you about this example is it uses eighth notes. It uses eighth notes. I'm going to suggest you use the exact same process, except now your asterisks won't represent quarter notes. They're going to represent eighth notes. And if you hear a quarter note, you're going to leave more space, right? So you're going to leave appropriate amounts of space based on the basic unit of the asterisk or whatever slash mark you put down on paper being an eighth note, okay? So I'm going to give you a rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Loo, 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 loo. Oh, I'm going to sing, actually. I'm just going to play the thing. I'm just going to play it, all right? You don't have to get the pitches, but since it helps to hear the pitches, I'm just going to play it. 2, 3, 4. Okay? It's only 2 bars long, but because it's eighth note, it kind of feels like 4. I'm going to do this a few more times, and then we'll again check in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And yeah, Joanne, I wasn't talking about pitch at all, and that's, you didn't miss anything. I didn't give any pitches. I was really just talking about rhythm. So you know, you could just make up your own pitches. But for this one, if you feel like figuring out the pitches, you can see what they are, right? You can see my hand on the keys. They're all white notes. I'll do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't look. You didn't even know where I was playing from, probably. But how's it going so far? I'm going to now suggest that I'm going to do this now, you know, without looking at it. I mean, I don't, well, yeah, I'm going to keep looking at it to make sure I don't play something wrong. But I want you to think about this in terms of starting to internalize it. I'd like you to sing along with that, okay? So hopefully you've heard it enough times that you can sing along with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. So one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't matter if you don't know the exact pitches or are a little bit off. What are you using to notate? So Victor, I'm not sure what you're asking. Pencil and paper? That's what I'm talking about. So if that's what you're talking about, and Michael's got a good answer in here, and we'll talk about that in a second. What I want to talk about now is the fact that so Michael's put in a really interesting way of looking at this. So Michael and John both have good answers here. Oh, asterisks. Oh, I was using period just to indicate that sound when something is tied over across the bar line, to indicate that the start of a pattern doesn't have a note and it doesn't have a rest. It has a continued sound. So I was using a period for it, but really you can do whatever you want for that. So Michael and John both have good answers here, and I understand what they're talking about here. But now I want to again appeal to the 8 patterns and look at what was actually going on here. So Michael has 4 asterisks followed by some space, indicating that that note is somehow longer. John has something very similar. He's got 4 number 8s followed by a dash to indicate that that 4th 8 is long. And you're definitely both correct there. But in order to get from there to notation, we're going to have to do the same thing as far as drawing in bar lines, but now we're drawing in half bar lines. We're drawing in every 2 beats is what we're going to need to do. So what I'm going to do is actually, since I've got this up here, I'm going to go to the course, and we're going to take a look at the handout on the 8 rhythms. So I have them up. And here's my 8 patterns. These 8 patterns last for 2 beats, right? So now I want to draw my patterns in every 2 beats. So so right, I'm going to count this like as if it was in 2/4. I'm going to pretend it's in 2/4, basically. That was the sound of a note being tied across. So the thing that is kind of missing from the way Michael and John have this written out here that would be needed to take it to the next level is that sense of where the start of the next pattern actually is. So I need to get back to where I am, which is over here. And I'm going to give you my version. So I'm putting 1 space between my asterisks. I'm actually going to, I like how you guys are just putting them right next to each other. And then is my sort of half bar line. And I'll use, I guess I'll just use the vertical bar for that. And then and then some space, and then do, and then do, and then do, 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 and then do, 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 do. That note is on there. So I'm drawing in my vertical bars, not every measure, but every 2 beats, because that's what I need to understand to get these rhythms. Once we've got eighth notes involved, I want to understand where the every 2 beats happen. So now that I've done that, I can see that what I have here is my first pattern is do, 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 do. That's 4 eighth notes. And then I have long note tied over, followed by short note. Well, that's dotted quarter eighth. That's the only pattern that looks like that. A long note followed by 1 short note. The only pattern that looks like that. You can flip back over to the patterns if you doubt, but the only one of these eighth note based patterns that's a long note followed by 1 short note is this guy, number 6, dotted quarter eighth. None of the others are 1 long note followed by 1 short note, right? None of them look like that. So that pattern must have been dotted quarter eighth. And then I have boo-doo-doo-dum, which is 4 eighths again, and then 1 long note, half note. So this guy is that. It's eighth, 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 tied to dotted quarter, eighth, and then eighth, 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 half. So Michael's version here looks really good, and I like your yeah, and it is tied over at the end. I probably wasn't consistent about whether I tied it over at the end or not, but in point of fact, in the real song, it actually is. So the way you have that written, Michael, is great. The only thing I might do is I might differentiate the mid-measure fake bar line and from the real bar line. So I might do a slight variation on that, in which I try this. I might go do 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 slash dot do, and then the real bar line, and then do 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 do, and then the slash do, and then space, and then the real bar line. So something like this, where I'm using the vertical bar to indicate real bar lines and the slash mark to indicate that sort of mid-measure thing. You know, how you choose to do this, you know, I'm making this up based on what's easy to type into a chat. My real notation is more what you hopefully can see here. I just put hash marks and then taller ones to be the taller ones to be the bar lines. Graham's asking about asterisks and vertical lines. So are you asking how to type them? I mean, the asterisk is Shift 8 on my keyboard, and the vertical line is Shift \\. But of course, everyone's keyboard is different. I have a sense that maybe you're asking something a little different than that. But you know, use whatever symbols work for you. Whatever symbol your keyboard supports well is whatever works. So what do I do for rests? Now that's a really good question. The thing is with rests, if I was doing this, like say that let's do one with a rest. All right, I'm going to do one now that has a rest, and then we'll talk about it. What I would do is make some other little mark, a zero, a circle, or I would just draw in a rest, because when I'm usually doing this, it's pencil and paper, right? Not typing into a chat. So I'll actually draw in some form of symbol to say rest, to let me know where that rest starts, because the rest start is last note being cut off, and that's kind of good information to know. So here's another rhythm. I got to find a good one that's going to work for my purpose. Sorry. I'll just use this one. Bottom two, do da 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 do da da do da dum. Okay, that's my pattern. I'll do it in the right key. I'll do it in the right key this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bottom. Do do da 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 do da do do da da do da dum. All right. I'm gonna try again. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Bottom. Do da 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 do da do da da do da dum. This time I'll actually play the pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bottom. Okay. I'm gonna do that one more time. 2, 3, 4. I'm going to do it one more, and then I'll try to write it out myself and see how it goes. And actually, maybe I'll bring up Google Draw and try to like draw it on screen so you can see it that way. Because I think that's more, I think the mental arithmetic of translating scribbles into ASCII characters that you can type into a chat, that's an extra complication that, you know, is one of those artificial things that makes it harder than it needs to be in real life. So as soon as I'm play it this one more time, I'm going to show you how I might actually draw it. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my gosh, look at that. Last bunch of pages just came out of their binding. Oh well, got to fix that. So I'm going to bring up Google Drawing, which is the drawing program that I occasionally use when I need to draw things, and I know just well enough to be able to use it, not well enough to be good at. Google Drawing, and somewhere around here. I think actually I have a shortcut to find for it somewhere. Launch, yeah. So what I might do is something like this. Let's give myself lines, and I go do 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 da 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 da, something like that. So I have ba-dum, slight downward, do, and I didn't get the right pitches here. So actually, whoops, let me undo that. See, this is the thing. I don't really know how to use this thing. Yeah, that sucks. Yeah. Okay. This slash here should be down more like that. You know, I'm trying to get these to resemble the note shapes. And again, if I'm drawing this on paper, I would have got it more right before. Bottom. So that's that. Next, I want to draw in my bar lines. Bottom, 4, 1. Exactly where Graham has it. There's a bar line right about here. And the thing is, that next note doesn't happen right at bottom, and then some space, and then space. Do-da-da-dum. That space isn't tied over, so I want to indicate that space somehow, and I'll just put in a little, this time I'll put in a dash. I don't know. I'm just going to make something up. So I'm just going to use dashes. And, I know that this still isn't quite the right shape. That one's higher. That looks pretty close to the right shape. So that dash is now indicating my rest. And I could indicate a rest here also with a big dash if I wanted to indicate that there's rests there as well. So Graham's version again here is looks good. I like that you've got the two things and then the thing, but now you've got all these asterisks here, but still no indication of where the midpoint is, where the 2 beats are. So now I need to use my fingers. Ba-dum, 2, 3, 4. Boo-da-da-ba. Right here is where that mid measure bar line is. So I'm going to draw my mid measure bar line in like that. Do-da-da. 1. Boo-da-da-da-da-da. Bum. That guy's right on 1, so I'll draw in another mid-measure bar line. I mean, another real bar line. I don't even have to care right now which are the mid-measure ones and which are the real ones, right? I can sort that out later. Ba, then ba. Here's my thumb. Ba-do-do-da. So ba-do-da-da. There's another tied across thing. So I can put my bar line in after that note, but I want to indicate that something got tied across. So I'll make a little symbol here to indicate that that thing got tied across, and I'll make it a little plus because, I don't know, I'm making it up as I go along. There we go. That's my tied across. Ba-do, ba-do, da-da, da-do. Bottom. That's my next bar line. Bottom 2, and so bottom 2, and then there's a mid-measure bar line in the middle of that long rest. So something like that. So now I want to check Victor's and Michael's and see if we're converging on this. I've got bottom and then some rest. And I see Victor has some version of that as well. And I think you're using rest to indicate. See, that's the thing, is I can't tell from your version which of these dashes indicate full beats and which indicate half beats. And so that is one downside of doing this. And I see Michael is trying to indicate this using R's and spaces, which is kind of nice. What I'm going to say is, but I now would want to draw in the actual beats. So now I'm going to draw in actual beats below. Bottom 2, 3, 4, 1. Boo, da, 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 boo, da, da. And this is on the beat. Bottom. Bottom. Here we go. So my slashes are getting mixed up with what's what because, again, I'm using a drawing program rather than pencil and paper where I could do this a little more clearly. But the big, long things here are bar lines or mid-measure fake bar lines. My diagonal slashes are my notes. The vertical things are rest. The plus is a tied over note, and these short slashes below are my beats. So what I can see is in this half a measure here, I've got bum, bum, and then a rest there for a beat. So this is 2/8 notes and a quarter. 2/8 notes and a quarter. 2/8 notes and a quarter rest there. This guy here is 2 full beats of rest. That's a half rest. This is half a beat of rest followed by 3/8 notes. So 1/8 rest, 3/8 notes. And then 4/8 notes. And then I have ba-do-da-dum. That's also 4/8 notes, but that last 1/8 note tied across the bar. And then here I have a rest that lasts for one beat, because these last two eighth notes come in on the beat. So this is a quarter note that was tied over, followed by two eighth notes, and then two eighth notes in the next measure. So that's what it should look like. And to do that into MuseScore, it's going to look something like this. Let me start a new line right here, and these won't be well, I'll make them be the right pitches, just because it'll bug people, including myself, if they're not. It was that's the bottom, and then the quarter rest, so 5-0, and then two beats of rest, so half rest, 6-0, and then eighth rest followed by three eighth notes, 4-0, and then boo-da-dum, and then ba-do-da-do, four eighth notes, ba-da-da-dum, and then ba-do-da-dum, four eighth notes. Needs a courtesy accidental, so I'll do it. Ba-do. And then tied across that imaginary bar line to a quarter note, 5T. Then bottom, two eighth notes, whoops, bottom, and then finally two eighth notes, bottom, bottom. So yeah, getting the pitches is another matter, but this is what it should look like right here. Bottom, 2, 3, 4, rest. Boo da 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 da. So this process that I'm doing of first kind of spacing the notes out, next figuring out where the bar lines are, next figuring out if there's eighth notes where my mid-measure bar lines are, my mid-measure fake bar lines, and then just kind of sorting out, well, what does this rhythm add up to? I mean, once you looked at my drawing here, once I see that there's two short notes followed by a long rest, again, short, short, long, eighth, eighth, quarter. That's the only thing that does that. It's the only one of our 8 patterns that has that short, short, long is that pattern specifically, eighth, eighth, quarter. So if you know those 8 patterns and you have accurately divided up each, you divided up your measure into half measures as appropriate, or if there's 16th notes, you do it beat by beat. You want to get your whatever system of slash marks or scribbles you want to do so that they map really nicely. So you want to use spacing to indicate long notes, use some symbol to indicate that there's actual rest there, use some symbol to indicate a held over note from the previous pattern. And you won't necessarily know that was there originally, because you might just think there's a long note. Not until you draw the bar line in do you realize something got carried across it. So that's when you draw in that thing to say, oh, thing was tied across, right? So anyhow, that's a bit of a process for you, and we got to kind of work through some examples together. And I don't know, hopefully you find these things helpful. And I'm going to recommend, again, you go through the projects as given. Try this out for yourself on Let It Be. Try it out for yourself on the Tony Bennett song that I still can't remember the name of, Fascinating Rhythm. Gershwin song. So that's what we got time for today. I'm going to encourage people who want to get together and talk about this further, talk about whatever else you want to talk about tomorrow during study hall. But yeah, those hours that we've been picking the same time on Friday, as well as 6:30 Eastern on Friday. Let's just keep trying this. So anyhow, let's call this a day. And this working through rhythm and really getting good at it, this process of hands-on transcription is really important. The process of practicing reading rhythm is also important. And, we're not working on that so much right now. I'll probably do some additional projects here. And it's not something you learn in a week. I want to give you the tools. But yeah, you're going to spend some time getting good at this. But I want I want to make sure we spend whatever time it takes to understand the tools so that then you can work on these things on your own. So that's what we're doing here, and we're going to keep doing it. Next week will be some new lessons, and I think we'll probably keep focusing on notation a little bit, the relationship between the notation, rhythm, and pitch before we delve too much into scales. But we'll talk about that a little bit. But I'll take some comments. I'll post something and ask you your feedback. All right. So anyhow, see you all next time. Thanks a lot.